to Around the Kitchen Table with Happy Herbs.
My name is Rochelle. I'm a certified herbalist and the owner and founder of Happy Herbs.
My name is Jordanna, and I am a life coach and almost therapist. I'm almost graduated.
Yes. And so this is part 2 to the one that we did on
our first episode, right?
Or on hormones. Yep. So today we are going to talk about pregnancy and postpartum. And this girl right here, she's pregnant right now. She got a little belly.
I love that. Like, I haven't posted it and I don't really post on my page. So your followers will know that I'm pregnant, but not mine.
Yes. I love it. With a little girl. Very, very exciting.
Yes.
Second baby. So, I wanted to first start off with talking about, because if you watched the first podcast, we talk about the fact that I had issues with not getting pregnant, but staying pregnant, and the journey that I went through. And one of the things that helped me was progesterone. And this is not the same as wild yam, as like something that can convert to natural progesterone. USP progesterone is different, and it is taken in a lab, and it is converted to USP progesterone from wild yam. So it is very different. So if you're someone who is struggling with miscarriages, do not take wild yam or yarrow thinking that like that is going to increase your progesterone levels. Make sure that you are using USP progesterone, because that is the only thing that's going to increase. Obviously, you could use like synthetic progesterone from your doctor. They usually give suppositories, but there's a lot of side effects to that. You can look that up. That's not the route that I wanted to take. USP progesterone is a lot more natural and safer for you and baby. So saying that, when we are pregnant, our uterine lining needs to build in order to create a safe foundation for baby. And so if you don't have enough progesterone, that uterine lining doesn't properly grow and get thicker and thicker, and then that's when a miscarriage can happen. So if you have issues with progesterone, using something like USP progesterone cream, because it's measurable, it's going to increase your progesterone so that uterine lining gets thicker and thicker and it does not collapse, right? And so some people will only take progesterone for 12 weeks, but the regimen that I did, I took it until 20 weeks. That is better, because essentially the placenta takes over a lot of the hormone production at like 12 to 13 weeks, but the placenta is almost like fully grown and takes over almost everything closer to 20 weeks. So it is safer to push it that long. But obviously if you're taking like a synthetic progesterone, like people want to get off of that as soon as possible, because they're just like, it's terrible side effects. But with USP, you don't have those side effects. So anyways, if anyone is struggling with miscarriages due to low progesterone, DM me, email me, go on my website, message me, and I will happily send you the progesterone, the USP progesterone cream that I used, as well as the exact instructions on how to use it from about 2 to 3 days after you ovulate. You'll start using the cream, and then you use it morning and evening every single day. And with each few weeks, you increase the dose all the way to 20 weeks. There's a specific amount that you use. It's beautiful and it works. And so if anyone is struggling with that, please reach out, and I am happy to freely give that information away.
I love that. That's so good. Okay. On the topic of pregnancy. So yes, you definitely have found a solution that has worked for you, and I believe it's going to work for many people. So I'm really glad that you were able to create a way where this is something that's accessible for people, which is honestly really exciting in my opinion. Pregnancy. When I tell you that I literally can only do one task and then I pass out, I'm so exhausted. And when I first trimester, so nauseous. So then I reached out to you and I was like, girl, I'm nauseous. Like, it just, that's it. And you told me one word: magnesium.
Yes. So a lot of the times, morning sickness, I don't know why they call it morning sickness, because it's usually all damn day.
I know. It's so interesting that they say that.
Oh, I don't know. Is a magnesium deficiency. And when we are pregnant, we use up a lot of magnesium. We need a lot of magnesium. And even the recommended dose that, your midwife or doctor will tell you to take is usually not enough. And so we need a lot of it, whether it's through supplements, food, creams. I will say that magnesium is more absorbed through topical use than it is internal. So when you're pregnant, like for myself, like I would take magnesium orally. I would also apply magnesium to the bottoms of my feet or my body multiple times a day. And then I would also take a homeopathic cell salt called Mag Phos, and that's going to help you actually absorb the magnesium from everything else a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then you want to eat foods that are high in magnesium, like bananas and dates are really great and they're delicious, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so important to make sure that you are getting your magnesium. Even if you just put a little bit of salt in your water once a day, that's also going to give you a lot of mineral salts that we need as women. And making sure you're eating
Absolutely.
and drinking, because your body is using so much energy. And so one of the herbs two of the herbs that I always recommend for women when they are pregnant, and which I took actually in replace of any sort of multivitamins during my pregnancies, was nettle and dandelion tincture. So those two, that's what I take. That's what I took my entire pregnancy, because they are so rich in vitamins and minerals. And the thing with synthetic vitamins, if you follow me, you would see that I have done a post on synthetic vitamins, is that when we take synthetic vitamins, you are telling your body that, oh, this storage is full. We don't need to absorb this from food anymore. And so you're taking your multivitamin in the daytime, and then all that food that you're eating, your body is not going to absorb the nutrients that it needs from that food if that storage has already been filled up. And so you're going to pee that out. And so you're now swapping out real life quality vitamins for synthetic vitamins that it's essentially tricking your body. And I find that a lot of the times, even when women have like postpartum hair, their hair starts to fall out. I wouldn't be surprised if that's due to like taking such high amounts of vitamins. Like you're tricking your body, and then they usually stop, after. And then your body's just kind of like, it's havoc. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So it's really important. And I'm not saying don't take your vitamins, because, I have to be careful with what I say, essentially. But it is always better to get your nutrients from food or supplements. I was telling you, I'm like, okay, get some spirulina, get some wheat barley grass powder, whatever you need. You know what I mean? It's better to get it from food than to get it from a synthetic man-made vitamin that's tricking your body, So nettle and dandelion, extremely, extremely rich in vitamins and minerals. That's what I took.
As well as iron?
I did not take iron.
No, isn't the nettle and the dandelion, doesn't that help?
It's high in iron.
Yeah,
yes. It's high in iron, but I did not take synthetic iron. It's terrible for the gut.
Okay.
I can't, if I took an iron pill, I would literally throw up. I can't.
Wow.
I can't take it. And I had one customer, and her midwife was trying to get her to take iron, and she couldn't handle it. Terrible for the gut, right? And she used my nettle and dandelion tincture, and then got her blood tested a few months later, and she said her levels were like so high. So I love getting that feedback from people.
Good.
Because it works,
Yep.
Food is always going to be the best for you and baby.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I love that. I also love that you're the solution to all these things that we're talking about, because I can just come to you and be like, all right, make me a pregnancy kit. I'm ready.
And I do actually have a pregnancy kit on the Happy Herbs website.
Yeah.
That has, the nettle and the dandelion and magnesium, amongst other things in there. And
because it's like a prenatal, like.
Yep, it's like a prenatal. And then, at 36 weeks, it's great to take red raspberry leaf at that time. A lot of women will continue to take red raspberry leaf through their whole pregnancy. I personally did. But if you're someone who's extremely sensitive to miscarriages, because it can cause uterine contractions, which it really doesn't. Red raspberry leaf is actually known to prevent miscarriages. There's just a lot of false information out there, and it scares a lot of people. And so people they're careful. And so they usually are like, okay, don't take it till 36 weeks pregnant. If that's you, that's fine. Take it at 36, Take your nettle and your dandelion, that's still super nutritious. But I personally took red raspberry leaf throughout my whole pregnancy. But what I recommend to others, 36 weeks, start taking it, because that's going to help with preparing your uterus for labor. And it's going to also give you that extra nutrients that you need as well. It's really, really great for helping the hormones, especially after birth. Highly recommend it to help you balance out the hormones. And even nettle. Usually I'll do a blend for women throughout their pregnancy, but then at 36 weeks, I'm like, okay, now just take nettle. I mean, you can still take dandelion too, but nettle is going to help prevent hemorrhaging.
Okay, so that is very helpful because no one wants to hemorrhage after, and a lot of I did last time.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't actually have a good protocol. I was gonna say I would like to work together with you to come up with an afterbirth. I've seen a lot of women like it's almost like a tea they're sitting in the bath. There's nothing, there's no
Yep.
like, open
Yep.
like herbs,
Yep.
but because that would be super healing
Of
too
course. Yeah.
for the baby and just using your services for after.
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned the nettle because that was something that I really like struggled with, and then I was anemic. So
Yeah.
I hemorrhaged, I lost a lot of blood,
Wow.
and then I was anemic. So I was gray.
So you needed shepherd's purse. So when I gave birth, to my children at home, I had like 3 kits. I had my homeopathy kit, I had my essential oil kit, and I had my tincture kit. And shepherd's purse is a really great tincture to have on hand because if you start hemorrhaging, you don't want to take it if you're not hemorrhaging. Nettle, you're going to take that. But if you start hemorrhaging, shepherd's purse is going to help stop that. Another great thing to do is after you give birth, eat dates. It sounds crazy. It also prevents hemorrhaging. So after I gave birth, I just ate a bunch of dates in bed with the baby and, took my tinctures. I also took, it was black cohosh and something else to birth my placenta. So, because
they gave me, what is it called?
They gave you Pitocin.
Pitocin, and I didn't want it.
Yeah.
And they forced it on me. They were like, no, you have to. You're bleeding too much. And I didn't know my rights.
Oh, well, if you're hemorrhaging, I can understand why they would want to do that because you didn't have anything else, right? So you do have to be like mindful.
I don't think it was that deep. I don't think it was like I was hemorrhaging too bad.
Yeah.
They were impatient. They wanted me out of...
That's
and
how it is.
I had paid someone to encapsulate my placenta. They forced me to go sit on the toilet. And it compromised my placenta. But did it really? I guess it really would have. But like, it's not fair. Then they took my placenta. That was not good. So,
then you learn. Yeah, no, that's...
Yeah.
So what was I saying with this?
Yeah, so you were just explaining.
Oh, so the placenta. So I'm Rh negative. And so when you are Rh negative blood type, they scare you a lot during pregnancy because if your baby is positive, they're like, your blood could attack the baby's blood. And there's all this stuff. I read a book on it and read the studies, and it's really not that deep. They scare the hell out of you though. And so I didn't get the RhoGAM shot because the thing is, when you read the studies, all of these sensitization, as they call it, started to increase when we started having interventions. So the less interventions, the less likely you are going to become sensitized. And sensitization means when you and your baby's blood crosses, and then your blood can attack the baby and it can cause issues in the baby. They can become anemic, amongst other things. And then if you're sensitized, you can be sensitized for all your pregnancies moving forward. Wow. And there can be issues. But I'm a part of this group, and there are tons of women who are sensitized, go on to have healthy, normal babies. There are people who are sensitized and do have issues. There are people who get the RhoGAM shot and they still get sensitized. And there are people who don't get the RhoGAM shot and don't get sensitized. It's really not that black and white. Okay. And so anyways, I made it a point, because I didn't want to get the RhoGAM shot because it is a blood product, that I was going to reduce as many interferences as possible. And one of those things is when you give birth to your baby, a lot of the times they'll pull the placenta out, they'll like lead it out with the cord. And I didn't want that because that can cause issues, right? And so I took black cohosh, which causes the uterus to contract. I remember getting my midwife, I was like, okay, go get that tincture bottle and, put medicinal dose. I think it was like, 4 tablespoons of this, and mix it up, and chugged it back, and then just sat on the toilet and, took my time. You were there.
Yeah.
I really was. Gosh, she was at my birth. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Joe was at my second birth with my daughter. I loved having you there. You were just such a powerhouse of support. Oh my gosh. Like, I remember sitting on the toilet and you're like, hey, remember, don't let them rush you. You got this. Your body, it's going to come out. Yes. Don't let them rush you. Just relax. I was like, thanks, Joe. And then the placenta came came right out. But Joe was like,
Oh,
you were just chanting. I had my wall of all of my, affirmations, and you're just like, this room is full of love.
yeah.
You can birth this baby.
Yes.
Open. Like
Yes.
saying chanting all these things, like, oh, you were amazing. I was so happy to have you there, and you were praying,
Do you remember when
and
Analia came
and
out?
you were so contagious. This girl's prayer was so contagious that my doula started praying, and my midwife, I was in shock. My midwife started praying. Everyone was just praying over us while we were just in this tub, like birthing this baby. And it was so beautiful, and I just felt so much love, and I was just surrounded by like these powerful women.
Do you remember when she came out though, and she needed a little extra help?
Yep. And so when she came out, and I have the picture, she swallowed a little bit of water.
Uh-huh.
And she was like kind of like doing a little bit of breathing, and I'm like, patting her back and trying to get her to cry. And you looked at me and you're like, speak to her. She needs to hear your voice. And I just, because birth can be like, it's intense. You're like, I'm like quiet, like, okay.
Totally. You were like, oh, my baby. You were like, so you and Mitch were praying, like, you're like, just under your breath. And I remember being like, no,
Yeah.
no.
You're like, speak.
You have authority. I'm the hormonal, so.
You're like, speak to her. And then I just like started speaking to her. I'm like, in the name of
Yes,
Jesus.
yeah.
Like, like.
We speak life over
We
you.
speak life over you.
We
Like,
speak clear, like, just over your lungs. Like,
yes.
you're gonna be fine.
And then she just literally, she was like,
yeah.
like,
And then she did the crying.
yeah. Oh, it was beautiful.
And I think in that moment, Elijah was on my hip.
Yeah.
Like, so he was like so engaged.
He was
like,
oh yeah, he loved it.
oh, he was so good.
He loved it.
He's the happiest.
Yeah, he's so sweet.
Sweetest baby.
Baby's coming.
I'm so in love with him. And I remember when I was feeding him, because you were literally like,
I was pushing him, but Mitchell came in. He's like, hey, I'm like, get him out here.
Yeah.
He has to get out.
I just
I'm like,
knew. We literally switched.
yeah,
and
that baby was
within,
coming
like
fast.
3 minutes, she was out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, your sister's here. He's like, sister. And then I brought him on my hip, and he was so mesmerized. And you guys did so good. And like even Mitch stepped in, and he was like, but it's like our babies need to hear our voice, our command.
Yes.
God gave us the authority now,
Yes.
especially when they're helpless.
Yeah.
We are the ones who can actually speak life over our children and say,
Absolutely.
you are alive, not dead. Like
Yes.
your lungs are going to be healthy. Like you are fine. Your brain is fine.
Yes.
Like, we speak all these, covenants over our children of blessing to cover them, because that is a commandment that God has given us as the parents who have the authority. He's like, no, I gave you the voice.
Yes.
You speak over, they listen, their spirit listens and recognizes the voice of God through us.
Yes.
Because now we are reconciling them back to who Jesus Christ is. So
absolutely.
In that moment, that authority that happened, you literally said, Analia, you said her name, you spoke to her.
Yeah.
And then that life came out.
Yeah.
And she cried, and it was the most beautiful sounds.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love the way that we can take authority over our children, and we understand the power that we have to do that.
Absolutely. Because
it's the difference between life or death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And even just, getting into that protective topic of, when we're pregnant, like there are so many interventions that these professionals want to put on you, because they're trained to do this, some of them don't know any better. And it can be such a battle when you're pregnant, saying no and standing your ground.
Yes.
And I can say I'm really thankful that with my first pregnancy, especially, that I had a doula, because I would go to these appointments and be like, oh my gosh, they're saying that I have to do this, 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 and this. And I tell her, she's like, did they give you this option? Did they give you that option?
Right.
Did you? And it's like, no, I didn't even know I had that option, And I'm so glad I had someone navigating me through that and helping me, like, knowing my options. Otherwise, like, I could have ended up in an induction or something.
It's really interesting that you say that, because I am on my bed, ready to give birth. I'm 10 centimeters, head's coming out. All of a sudden, meconium. So my water breaks, and there was meconium.
Yeah, and that happened to me too. You were there.
Yeah, so, and I had my birthing pool in the next room.
Mm-hmm.
I recently learned that as long as you have your birthing pool, you go right in.
Yep.
And then the baby doesn't breathe in the meconium because they're still in water until they come out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what my midwife did? She rushed me to the hospital.
Yeah.
And she literally
They're
said,
trained to do that.
but it's not right.
I know.
There was no other option. It's, they instill fear. It's, there's meconium, and that could affect the lungs.
Yeah.
Your child can die.
Yeah.
We need to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
It's like, well, of course I'm going to go. I was devastated.
Yeah.
This baby was coming out. I was told, I'm sorry, like I had literally had to suck her back in. I had to somehow get off the bed. I had to walk upstairs. It took me 30 minutes to get up 6 stairs because I was in so much pain and discomfort.
No.
And you know what was sad? Not sad, but it was just frustrating. The ambulance team that came, they were like, okay, like they were kind of like, come on. I actually had to look at the team and I held up my hands and I reached for their hands so they held on to mine. And I said, guys, please, 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 I'm in so much pain. Please, please just give me patience. It's like they just forget, like when you're in
Right?
that much pain and like like everything changed. Like this, there's a woman with me and she was like, you take your time. And this man was like, no problem. It took me 30 minutes to get up the stairs because they couldn't get the stretcher down to like get me up. Meanwhile, she's supposed to be coming out. So it delayed my birth about 4 hours.
Yeah, and
She would
you
have
could
come
have
out within 5 minutes.
you would have just been able to
They
birth
they
right
would have said go and
but you
put it in
didn't
the
know your
pool.
rights. You didn't know
I
your
didn't know
rights.
my
Yeah.
rights.
Yeah.
And so
We're so used to thinking we can't say no.
oh yeah, well we weren't given an option. It's like
Right?
here's your option. We got a call, your child could die. What am I supposed to say?
Right?
If
Yeah.
I knew, I'm like, the
If you
birthing pool
knew,
was right
yeah.
there.
If you knew. Yeah.
So I don't hold any like bitterness or resentment.
Yeah.
I just an informed choice.
Yeah.
And knowing your options. And I guess sometimes we have to be in these situations to then know for next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think it's really important for us to know our rights
And that's on so many topics. Like, you go into this care and it's like, okay, right away they want you to that diabetes drink. Like,
I was just gonna say the glucose drink.
yeah, like no.
They test. And
I
they
didn't
They
drink
want
that.
to test if your child has like Down syndrome. Is that?
Well, no, it's well, there's one of those tests too at 12 weeks, right? But I declined that test.
Of course.
The diabetes one I declined because
Yeah.
it's like let's say I did, like I'm not eating sugar and all these things anyway. So
Right.
I'm going to be doing all these preventative things anyways.
Yes.
But regardless, like that drink is toxic. So, and I asked, I was
It
like,
is.
I'll eat some like I'll make some candy and eat that if you want me to. So they actually ended up doing a blood test instead because they're like, well, let's
which
just let us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually declined, I think, everything. Like even the GB swab, I declined that.
See, and I didn't, but then they told me because I was positive, they were like, we need to give you, was it like penicillin or something?
Antibiotics, yeah. Which
And I
is
was like,
so dangerous
and I
for
said
you
no.
and baby. Good.
Of course. I said no to all of that. Even having my baby unmedicated, I didn't take Tylenol, nothing. Like,
Yeah.
it was at a time where I didn't even know that a peri bottle was supposed to be used when you go to the toilet.
Oh, wow.
So I had, like I ripped. I don't know if I could say that. I had some like a tear. And I used the bathroom the entire visit in the hospital without a peri bottle.
Oh my
They
God.
just well, it was COVID, and then my midwife switched over, and no one came to me for
Wow.
about 8 hours. Plus,
I hear this all the time.
but
The
plus
negligence.
the hospital, I wasn't their first priority because I had a midwife.
Right.
So I was just left there,
Right.
and it was the most painful thing to use the bathroom. And then once I knew to put hot water in the peri bottle, it changed the game. What I wanted to pivot to is the fact that this whole BMI and this whole, when you go and you get your appointments, they tell you, oh, you're gaining too much weight. You look too, I remember I was weight training, weightlifting, and it was like the first 3 weeks I found out I was pregnant. And they told me, oh my gosh, like you're in the obese rate and like your BMI is too high. And like, it really spiraled me. Like I felt like I failed. I'm like, how did I gain, like, how am I too big? Like they just really made me feel bad. But like we've talked about, I think in the first podcast, that it's what does it stand for? Like body mass index.
Mhm.
That it does not apply to Black women. Like
Mhm.
the scale in which they measure it is not actually equivalent for the way that our bodies are built.
Mhm.
And that's one thing. So
Well, everyone's different. And it also like, yeah, there's so many other factors, that go into play, including obviously like height and things like that.
of course.
But yeah, I do think I didn't experience that, but I gained a lot of weight with my pregnancy. And I think it really depends on the midwife that you have.
Yeah.
Some
I
are
gained 5 or 10 pounds the first 3 weeks or something. I don't even know. Like it could have been 12 weeks.
yeah, no, I
And she
think
was like,
that's-
you're getting too big too
no.
fast.
I think that I think that's really rude.
Yeah,
because at both my pregnancies, I gained over 50 pounds. Like,
And I-
and I ate clean. I did everything, and
I
it
did
came
too.
off easily too. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
But it's interesting because you were someone who encouraged me this time around, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't gain too much weight. Like, what mentally, like, that's not going to be good for me. But you were like, the weight is like for your baby, the
Yeah.
placenta, your body,
There's
like,
so many factors. It's your blood volume,
yeah,
the baby, your
retention.
placenta. Like there's so many places where that weight goes. So it's not just like you're gaining all of this fat. You know
Right,
what I
right.
mean? Like your breasts get bigger, like everything gets bigger. So like this whole rule of like you should only, gain 20
20
pounds. Like
pounds? Who
that's a
came up with
joke.
that?
That's a joke. Okay, maybe like some people they do experience that, but
Yeah.
most women that I know gained 40 plus pounds
Yep.
with their pregnancies, regardless if they're like tiny or big or whatever.
Yep.
Like that is really normal. I don't think I know anyone who gained 20 pounds during pregnancy unless they like exist on Instagram. You know what I mean? Kind of like
I find if someone's like a more petite frame or shorter, maybe.
yeah.
But like I know this personal trainer that I follow, and she is working out every day,
Yeah.
eating right.
Yeah.
This girl gained 50 pounds, and she posts how I lost my 50 pounds in a
Yeah.
year.
So
A year. How realistic is that?
yeah. Oh,
Like,
exactly. In
I
a
love
year.
that.
My daughter is 1 now, and I still have like some weight to get off. Usually, I'm like 140, and I'm still like 153 right now, and it's taken longer. But with my son, that came off real fast.
Right.
It came off really fast, like slowly, not really fast, but like within 8 months, like I was like back to like my normal weight.
Right.
But with my daughter, it's taken longer, and there can be so many different factors from that. With my son, I pumped for a year because breastfeeding was really difficult. With Analia, I'm breastfeeding. I think that our body responds differently, like hormonally, to breastfeeding than to pumping, right?
Yeah.
Our body knows like, hey, she's still feeding 4 times a day. I need to hold on to this fat because we need it to make breast milk, because breast milk is essentially fat.
Yeah.
So we have to give our grace, because there's this bounce back culture that's ridiculous, and it's just like, oh, like you had a baby, but are you hot yet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we are mothers. We are supposed to have higher fat than men.
Yeah.
And we are supposed to have more fat on us when we have babies, because it is our bodies that feed our babies.
Yes.
Like, come on, It's crazy. Both of my kids are big too. Like, Elijah was
chunk that is that baby girl, Analia.
They're
I don't think the world understands. Have you posted her? Like,
like
just
there's
like her
some,
bot, like just I wish if you could
there's
put like a
little
cartoon over her
rolls
face
or something. Like
rolls.
on my personal Instagram, there's like you can see some pictures of like her back, but I don't really post my kid's face. But both of them, Elijah,
like Mushlin baby,
yeah,
so
like a
cute.
I say Gerbert baby, like a little Gerbert baby. But Elijah was 9.7 pounds when I had him, and everyone like gasped. They're like he was a chunky, like a little chunk. And Analia, she was 8.5, but she came out pretty skinny. And then as soon as she went on the breast, she was like,
So that's really interesting, because you were like, oh, we'll talk about it. The stretcher that you used for yourself.
Oh, the Epino.
Listen
to
me, girl. The fact that you just said 9.7, I'm like, who's
That's
ready
what
for
I'm
that?
saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm so glad I had the Epino. So for all you listeners, Epino, it stands for no episiotomy. And this is a device that was created in Europe by midwives and doctors. And it's like a little balloon. And when you get to 36, 37 weeks, you position yourself and you put it up your vagina, and you just kind of like, pump it up a little bit, just a little bit too, as much as you can handle, right? You pump it up, and then you remove it. And then every day you keep doing that until you get to 10 centimeters. And you have like a heart.
Doesn't it hurt?
I wouldn't say it hurts, but it's uncomfortable. It's like working out. Like it's a muscle. Your vagina's a muscle, So it's like when you're lifting like heavy weights, like, that feeling where you're like, it kind of hurts. It's like struggle, but it's a muscle.
Is it unbearable?
No, it's not unbearable. And you can control it. You're not going to like go to 10 centimeters right away.
So you stretch yourself to 10 centimeters.
Yeah, before. And with the Epino. And so, yeah, it took me like 2 or 3 weeks to get there. And then, yeah, that helps with preventing tearing when you give birth. So I did that, and I'm so thankful I had that, because my son was big and he had a big head, like 9.7 pound baby. It took me, I think I was pushing for like over 2 hours. It was tough. Like I remember at one point being like, Holy Spirit, like you got to help me. Because I didn't want to say I can't do this, because they're going to take me seriously. Yeah. And so it was tough. And he came out beautifully, and
you pushed for 2 hours straight.
Yeah, for 2 hours with my first. And then Analia, like I still used the Epino, but she was like,
she flew
out.
I
was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, she flew out.
But because of how fast she came out, it was painful.
Um, I think it was more painful for when I had Elijah.
I thought you
And
said
I
it
don't
was,
even like to say pain.
but I thought you said that one you really felt like you were like, no, like I didn't feel much with the because I remember
So
when you
what
had
I
Elijah.
said was with Elijah, I kind of like blacked out, like in the sense that after I gave birth, like a few days after, I kind of like forgot. Like I was like, oh, it was like a distant memory. But with the second, for some reason, I was like, I remember this very clearly, and I can still remember it very clearly. But I think it was because it happened so quickly that with Elijah, it's like your first child, you almost like, okay, I'm gonna get spiritual here. It's almost like with your first child, it's like that's your first experience of becoming a mother. It's like you're transcending. You know what I mean? Like I almost had to like leave myself
Mm,
to like do this task and like
yeah.
come back in myself.
Yeah.
And it was like really intense because not only are you birthing a child for your first time, it's intense. Like, I'm pushing for 2 hours. I'm like checked out. There's also this like spiritual thing happening where I am now like becoming a mother. And so I feel like I was just like in this other place and I could remember it. But then as time went on, it kind of was like, like faded. It was weird because I was in like a state of mind.
Wow.
But with Analia, I was like fully there, fully aware. And I wonder if it's because like I was already a mother. It's crazy that if
Well,
and because it happened
I
fast.
hear what you're saying, but I had the complete opposite experience. I still to this day can think about the pain and I cannot forget it.
Hmm.
It was so painful. I was not
But
expecting
you
a
had
natural
trauma
birth.
around your birth though, right? Because you were taken out of your
I was
place.
taken when I was pushing. It could have been painful because as soon as the midwife was like, okay, like you're taking too long, like we're gonna vacuum suck her out. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah, see, that's
So as soon as
traumatic
her
right
head
there.
was starting to like crown, she shoved both her hands like in my vagina and pulled the baby out.
Nope.
So maybe that's why it was
No,
painful.
absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't let anybody touch me. You know what I mean? Like I was like, no, like even the second time around, I was like, no cervical checks. I didn't get any cervical checks during my whole pregnancy while I was, giving birth. And when she was like fully out, like the midwife, like I allowed her to like help guide her out and put her into my arms. And that was like as far as I went. But when you have people intervening, like that's when it
Wait, so you were
changes.
thinking like the baby would come out and I would hold the baby as it came out, put on me?
Yes.
Nah, I couldn't. So I had retained so much water that I couldn't bend down, like use my knees.
Mm-hmm.
So already I was advocating for myself a lot in the hospital. They laid me down. They were like,
Yeah.
push. I was like,
Yeah. No.
it's not normal for anyone to be laying, like,
No.
to lay down and push. So what
Imagine
happened
laying down
was,
and pooing.
well, that's what I'm saying. So then they put the bar on the hospital bed, but then they were like, okay, we need you to push. And I was like, I have no energy. And they're like, well, push. I said, no. I said, I need you to get me juice. So they said, okay, fine. So they were getting me juice every 5 minutes because I was like, my blood sugar's low.
Yeah,
I know I'm
they weren't
anemic. I
feeding
don't
you.
know
Yeah.
why they don't know that I'm anemic
Oh
and
my
why they didn't
gosh.
care. I was advocating for myself for every step of the way. Then they were like, okay, we're cutting the cord. I said, I told you we're not cutting the cord.
Yeah, delayed
We
cord.
are delaying it for an
Mm-hmm.
hour. They're like, it doesn't make a difference. And they were like,
Yes, it does.
but this is the midwife saying that. She was like, it doesn't,
What?
yeah. She was like, it doesn't make a difference. You really don't need to do that.
Oh my
And they were
gosh.
really trying to be like, cut the cord. And I was like, no. So an hour later, they finally cut. But that pain, I will never forget ever. It hurt. Like I can still think about it. So I don't know how. I remember you being like, "Ouch, that one hurt" with Analia. But I mean, again, like if it,
I think it's like a big part of it is environmental, and I have to say too, like I did hypnobirthing. So
okay,
I was doing hypnobirthing my whole pregnancy up to, birth. So
was
I
what?
had this regimen. So hypnobirthing, there's a lot of different ways, but I did something called Christian hypnobirthing, and there's an app called Christian hypnobirthing. And every day when I would use my app, I'd put my headphones in and I would listen to these recordings, and they were different recordings, and some of them were like affirmations, like my body can birth this baby, like I am strong enough, like my baby is not too big for my body, like all of these beautiful things that you
Mhm.
listen to. And then they go into memory verses, like memory verses just like speaking over you, and then like music. And so I was constantly every day like speaking life into myself, and also replacing the word pain with like sensation and all of these things, because it really is a mental battle and
Mhm.
physical
Yeah.
when you were giving birth. So I, as soon as like birth, contraction started, I was like headphones in, like already knew what to do, hypnobirthing, had those thoughts in my head, had my affirmations on the wall, like had my essential oils going. I had balance essential oil in the room. I had my clary sage on my
Mhm.
ankle, on my pillow, smelling that to help with contractions. Like I had my whole regiment going. I'm praying
Mhm.
I had my people there and I felt safe.
Mhm.
You know, you were there. We went outside.
Yep.
I was walking around bare feet in the backyard, just like grounding and in the sun. And so comparing something like that to like being ripped out of your space, taken to a hospital, now you have to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Now you have to be like hyper aware
Yeah.
because who's
And they're
advocating for
forcing you
yourself?
to push her.
I had if that like I had a doula there. I knew I could just rest and be safe because I had a doula there who was watching over me. You know, my midwives, I actually had really excellent midwives, and my one midwife was previously a doula. And so she had a different background. I had you there. I felt very, very safe. So even when those sensations came, it was like I already had this mental state about it from hypnobirthing. And again, like when you feel safe, you experience pain very differently from when you do not feel safe.
Yeah.
So I think that is a huge factor. So it's like, of course you're going to feel that way. You know,
Yeah.
like you're in protective mode. And then when you're in the hospital too, you have your baby and it's like, okay, like I know you didn't want vitamin K. You know, are they going to try and take your baby, give them vitamin K? Or they got, you know what I mean? All the things. I think was it around COVID too?
It was COVID. It was
They're like, they're going to try and test your baby.
experience that the hospitals had with COVID. I was the first, like, I was able to diffuse my lemongrass in the hospital.
Yeah.
Which people are like, what? You can't diffuse in the hospital. So like that's how new it was, like
Wow.
COVID. Yeah. Like no one was wearing masks yet. Like it was March. So wait, it was June.
Right.
And then COVID was really like, it came out in April, like where people were like, okay, like everything, the short supplies and everything. So I hear what you're saying, you know, and I think environment made a huge difference. And this time will be better because
it will be
at home.
It will be better. It's going to be so much better.
Yeah.
The second child too, they come out a lot quicker.
They fly out.
Right. And you have all the tools, right? I'm going to be like, hey, Joe, here's your bag.
Yeah.
Here's your goodie bag.
Yes, 100%.
Of all the things that you're going to be using.
Yes.
And it's going to be beautiful and you're going to feel safe.
Yes.
And it's going to be good.
Yeah. I love that. And thank you for saying that. I believe that.
Yeah.
I have a really good feeling about this baby and just even about this baby resetting my hormones and just yeah, I have a good sense with this baby. So
and then to talk about, you know, even after birth, like a lot of people we get stuck there. We're like, okay, we prepare so much for being pregnant and, you know, for the birth experience, you know, I should also say like another wonderful thing too, which I didn't mention, is after you give birth, take arnica, right? We always forget that. Like, yeah, we just went through a lot. Yes. Our body needs to heal. Take arnica after birth. Mm-hmm. For you, if your baby has a traumatic birth, you can give it to your baby too.
Explain what arnica is.
So arnica is a homeopathic remedy, and it speeds up healing in the body, right? So you can get it in a 30 CH, and you can just take one pellet of that 2 times a day. Mm-hmm. If your baby needs it, you can give it to your baby too. And it's going to speed up your healing. Make sure you have, you know, specific sprays made for your vagina, right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
I sell that too. And so I do a mix of frankincense and lavender.
I love that.
You can also, in witch hazel, and you can also put frankincense and lavender on your abdomen. That's going to help lower your abdomen. Mm-hmm. It's going to also help with collagen. It's going to help reduce stretch marks and allow your skin to, you know, go back to what it was.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, like, nourishing your body. You need so much nourishment after you give birth. Like, make sure you have someone there who's going to be like feeding you and making sure you're getting a lot of food so that you can have a good, healthy breast milk supply. And nettle is amazing for breast milk. I take it every day for my breast milk. You saw how much breast milk I
literally selling it on the black market.
Like, I wasn't, but like my whole freezer was just stashed with breast milk. But nettle is so amazing for breast milk supply. Red raspberry leaf is too. We should be taking those after birth for months after to help nourish our body and balance our hormones. Mm-hmm. And even basil doTERRA essential oil, you can put that on the breast, as well as fennel. Right. Rub it on the breast. That's going to help increase milk supply. Fennel seed is going to help increase milk supply. There are so many great things that we have access to that so many people don't know that we have that can help us heal quicker and, you know, nourish our bodies so that we can feel good after we give birth, right?
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, I definitely am going to start taking... I think we'll talk about the kit for after birth for sure too. And I'll grab some more of the stuff that you've recommended just because they do work.
Yeah.
I do want to just like put a disclaimer in there. Like, I think that there is a very special grace that God has put on each woman when they are having a baby. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who have not conceived yet, have a desire to, and are thinking, okay, well, that sounds really scary. I I really want you to know when you're going through your own experience, it's just not the same as hearing somebody else's or looking in.
Absolutely.
So going through it, was I like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is happening. Did I have a play like hindsight? Like, did I have a point of reference or the ability to reflect and then compare it to something? No. I was so happy that my baby came out and she was so safe and
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
There's nothing like when you give birth and that baby is placed on your chest and you were like, you were just inside of me. You were my
Right?
whole
Oh my God.
life.
That was you in there? Like,
Yeah.
that's like, you know?
And you're just holding this child and you are like, I recognize you, like,
Yes.
and staring into their eyes. And I spoke to my daughter. I said, Egypt, it's mama. And I'm speaking that your heart would immediately connect to mine, that there would be no confusion on who your mom is. Your dad's right there. And I just started to speak life over her. I was like, you are safe.
Yeah.
Get used to my heartbeat. You are right here. You are meant to be on this earth. And then I was saying things like affirmations, like I associate my mind and my emotions back to my body.
Yes.
Because we disassociate to survive.
Yeah.
So I was saying things like, you are safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be present in this moment.
Yeah.
And I was practicing exercises in a 10-second time frame just to be like, okay, what does my toe feel like? What does my finger feel like? Get present. What does this moment feel like? I'm going to soak it up just so that I could really be emotionally present for the biggest day of my daughter's life.
Yeah.
Coming into this world and coming from a literal perfect place.
Yeah.
Into this world is so traumatic for children in a sense, because they're like, I went from perfection and now it's like this perfectly tailored environment is not here for me. I have to adjust. There's so many lights, things.
Yeah.
So I really was like catered to her the entire time.
Having that empathy for babies. I don't think a lot of women realize that. They're like, oh, this baby's crying so much.
I
And
know.
it's like
The whole
this
time
baby is like,
I was like,
now
this
it has
little
to
child.
poop on its own. It has to pee on its own. It needs to work for milk. Like, it's tough for them, man.
And I was like, you are used to. So I heard that babies don't even recognize that they're a separate entity until like 3 months after.
Yep.
So I was like, you are living on my chest.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel bad. I don't feel annoyed. Can you imagine the trauma of that separation of the womb and coming out? I was like, so I had a wrap. She was on me all day long for 3 months straight.
Yeah.
I did everything. She was just, you know what I mean? And my point is, because of that grace that God gives us women, there's no need to fear, because you'll have your own individualized experience.
Yep.
And God will give you the grace to go through that.
Yep. But you still need to educate yourself and make sure that you're protecting yourself. I still think that's important.
All of that.
Yeah.
But my whole point is, we spoke about traumatic things that happen. Yeah. So I agree with advocacy. You have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about on the emotional welfare. Like, when you're thinking about, oh, I have to go into this. Like, did you hear that girl's story? Like, how can I do that? Ignore it. Don't worry about the pain, the discomfort, anything that another woman has gone through. Don't take that on as your own burden, because when you go through it, you'll have the grace to go through it, and your story will be tailored towards you, and God will take care of you. So I think I really needed to drill that home, because it's easy to hear someone's story and be like, whoa, like, I'm really thinking about having kids, but I don't want to go through that. And it's like, there's something that is so divine about birthing. And even I really enjoyed my I enjoyed the whole process. Like, contractions, they hurt, but I remember I tried something, because I realized, I'm like, wow, this baby girl is trying to come into the world, and she knows she has to leave the comfort and safety of, she's in a different realm. She's with Father God. So she's saying goodbye, you know, and that thought alone of her being with God. And then I had a vision of her being like, Daddy, I'm going to miss you. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss you. And they're playing at the beach in the sand. And he's like, you got to go soon. And she's like, no. And they're both happy but sad at the same time, because she's like, I have to go and I'm gonna miss you and I don't want to forget you. And he's like, don't worry, I gave you your mom and dad because they're gonna help you remember me, because they come and they're like, not blank slates, but they come and we reconcile them back.
Yeah.
So think about that labor. Like, that's not for me,
I know
that's for the
it's for
baby.
both of you. It's like you both go
I
through
mean,
this.
it's for
You're
me to get
doing
the
it
baby out,
together,
but they're
right?
coming from a different realm.
Yeah. We have to have that empathy on those
I
children.
couldn't even handle it. Like, I kept
Yeah.
going to her, "You're doing a good job."
Right, me too. I did the
I
same
was like,
thing.
"You're
Yeah.
doing fine." I'm
Yes.
like, "I'm proud of you."
Yes.
And it just distracted me from the pain because
Yeah.
I kept telling her, like, "You take your time."
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I
And
love
just
that.
you keep giving those kisses to Jesus. Tell him I
Yes.
love him. Talk to him for me. Take all the strength you need. Bring it to mama because I'm going to live my life for you.
Yeah.
And I just had such a beautiful process. We had worship music. I had a really great friend there, um, Sharon, who is literally like, I hired her as my photographer, and she ended up
I
being,
remember. Yeah.
yeah, she's a pastor, and she ended up just like literally being my birthing partner along with Egypt's father. So, you know, it was beautiful. And there's this beautiful divine serenity that comes when you're literally bringing a child from a different realm. They're coming from heaven. So just bringing her out and being like, oh my gosh, you were just with Jesus and placing her on me. Like, I was the closest I've ever been to feeling
It's
the
pure.
presence of God and being like, you were just with him. Like, I'm physically touching a being that was just with
Yeah.
Father God. So,
So the purity. And I love that you brought that up because even to take it back a little bit when you talked about, listening to other people's birth stories. And I can tell you about 2 months before I gave birth with my first, I didn't talk to anyone because at the time I was doing a home birth, a lot of people weren't doing it.
yeah.
And when I would talk about it to family members, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, how no, you can't do that." Like people
Yeah.
would try and scare me. Like and it's crazy. People tell you their traumatic stories. You'll go to the store and some person will stop you and be like, "Oh yeah, this is my traumatic birth story." You're like, "What?" And so I had to really create boundaries around myself in those last few months to just get myself in like a state of mind of like faith and trust and
Yes.
just like you know, trusting God and doing my hypnobirthing, etc. And so I think that is so important to not take people's birth stories to heart and to cut people off. They're telling you, be like, listen, I don't want to hear this. And then to go even further, like just talking about like when you give birth, like that's why the golden hour is so important too. It's like, don't let them take your baby from you after you give
Oh,
birth if
yeah,
they're
of
healthy.
course.
Like
They didn't
they
touch my
need to
baby.
be on your chest for that hour. You need to be
Oh, yeah.
bonding with them. They need their mom, you breastfeed, all of that. It's
Mhm.
so important. And then to even say the words that you spoke over her with both of my children, me and Mitchell, before they were born, wrote out a blessing for both of our children.
Oh,
And so after they were born, we would
you
take
read it.
them and we would anoint them with frankincense at the top of their head, and then we
Yes.
would speak this life blessing
Yeah.
over
Hmm.
them. Right. And I think that's so important, like the power of words, right? It's so important because like you said, God gives us that authority over our children.
Yeah, he really does. And I love that you guys wrote your scriptures out and spoke over your children. And I remember her dad being in the corner, like holding her on his chest, and just, I said, speak it out. Like, let her familiarize herself with who you are and her voice, and you're her hero. Like,
Yeah.
this is all she needs is you and I. Just to go back to what you were saying about, you're in the grocery store, somebody has a story. I would encourage you guys, when you hear somebody come up to you, I think that there's, again, the word that I'm thinking about is grace over
Mm-hmm.
a woman who is pregnant. Okay. It elicits a lot of people to come and to be
Yes.
like, this is my good story, my bad story. Like, everyone wants to talk. There's a
Yeah.
conversation around baby.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes up to you and they're sharing a traumatic situation, I want to encourage you. This is the therapist coming out in me. To, listen, give them the space. The fact that somebody's coming up to you, you don't have to receive any negative, like I call it like poisonous darts, that I don't think anyone's so ill-intended that they're going to come up and be like, that pregnant woman, let me curse her. Like, it's just too much. I don't think so. So I think there's a balance of, okay, let's listen to what this person has to say. This is what just came to mind when you were saying that. I'm going to try
Mm-hmm.
it. And then I want, if it's bad, I want you guys to say, I'm really sorry that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And leave space
Mm-hmm.
for when someone's telling you that. Just leave space. Like, don't fill it. Like, don't, oh, I can relate. I heard. No, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Make good eye contact.
Yeah.
And then I want you to say, if you could have an ideal birth happen for me, what would you wish upon me? And then you're going to get a blessing from a person. They're going to be like, I really hope that that baby comes. It's painless. I really hope that your labor goes well, that you are like filled with, all the strength you need. Like they're going to give to you what they wish they had.
Yeah. I
And then
love
you're going to
that.
say, wow, thank you so much for coming up to me and sharing your story. You've blessed them with understanding. They feel seen.
Yeah.
And then you're walking away being like, thank you for your well wishes. Can
Yeah.
you pray for me? Now, and not everybody prays, but guess what they're going to do? Because you asked them, keep me in mind and pray for me. And so now you have all these people around who are coming up to the conversation around life. And now you have little advocates around because everything matters. And so you can then go, so and so at the grocery store, so and so at the church, so and so at the mall. You meet all these people, you hear their stories, you're giving them life. Babies bring life. They are life, they bring life.
Yeah.
So you can say, I see you, I hear you, I'm so sorry that happened. Please wish me well. Like what would you wish over this child? And also, God bless you, please pray for me. And I think that encapsulates the heart of God and what birth is supposed to be. It's supposed to bring life, it's supposed to give life. I love that your whole practice is just about really sustaining life and helping people live so fruitful and so intentionally. You're so intentional with your brand and the way that you care about people. I think this is an amazing segue to conclude because we've said and talked about some topics that I really believe someone out there listening needs to hear this. I also really believe that you should end with a prayer and maybe pray over any of the mamas who are currently pregnant.
Yeah.
Or trying to get pregnant.
Yes.
Or just like the fear. Like I feel this
there is a fear.
I feel like there's a fear around just pregnancy and birth. And thank you for bringing that up and being like, yeah, people are like come up and they say it all the time. I want to just pray that fear would dissipate, that God would show up to these mothers and really show his divinity, his love, his grace, and that fear would not be in the driver's seat. Fear is a healthy emotion when it's not controlling you and it's not crippling.
Yeah.
So I think...
And there's a lot of fear installed in women in the health world. Like the second they get they get to their OB or they get to their midwife, it's like that's when it begins, and it's
you can't do this. This is why death. So let's conclude with,
let's do that.
I would love for you to pray. I want to say thank you so much to all of our Around the Kitchen Table Happy Herb listeners for being a part of this family.
Yeah,
because we are here to support you and to hear you and to see you. And if anything about this podcast resonated with you, please go to @Happy Herbs on Instagram and direct message Rochelle. Leave questions.
Or Jordanna as
leave
well,
comments.
Right? Yeah.
I'm private. You can request me, Jordanna. I am Jordanna Rose. Leave comments. Like any questions you have, anything that resonated, we will do a part 2. We can talk about maybe some of your stories. We can pray for you. We can give you some tips for, if you're trying to get pregnant, or if, you are pregnant and, you're in a rut, whatever's going on, we are here for you. We're going to end in a prayer, but know that this is the beginning of a conversation that will continue to go on.
Absolutely.
And we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening, and we will end in a prayer.
Yes. Okay. Father God, we thank you right now for this podcast and this platform where we can speak to women, Lord, on these topics that a lot of people feel in the dark about. I just ask you, Lord, that if there are any women right now listening who are struggling with, the spirit of fear, right? It really is everywhere in this day and age. You go on the internet, there's fear. You are in the hands of a professional who's supposed to be helping and guiding you, and there's fear. There's fear everywhere, Lord. So I just ask, Lord, that you would remove that fear, because there are certain people who are listening right now, Lord, who are specifically dealing with that. And so I pray, Lord, that you would reach through this podcast onto those people who are dealing with that, Lord, and that they would just be healing over them, that they would just be a supernatural peace and grace that comes over them, Lord, and that you would send people into their lives that would continually feed, that grace and that peace, Lord, but ultimately giving them the tools that they need to know that they are safe and that they are safe with you and that they have you to call out to and to pray to, Lord, in those moments, to not only guide them, but to just love them. And so I just pray for all women in general, Lord, women who are trying to have children, that if there's any fertility issues, that you would just lead them to the things that they need in order to heal, Lord. And for the women who are pregnant, and need you, Lord, that you would also just lead them to exactly where they need to be. And for the mothers, Lord, as well, that, being a mother can be so difficult. There's a lot of guilt over mothers of doing things right, and you want to do what is best for your children. There's so much information out there, Lord. So I just pray that each woman listening who is a mother, Lord, and even the ones who aren't, that they would find exactly what they need, Lord, in order to bring healing to their families, to their children, and to themselves. And ultimately that they would know that you are there for them, Lord, that you are not rude. You will never crawl through a window to get to them. You will not knock down the door, but you say, if we knock, you will answer, Lord. So to give them the courage to be able to hear your knock and answer that door, Lord, because you are always there for us and you love us and you love children and you love women, Lord. You've given us such a beautiful opportunity on this planet in order to give life, Lord. It is such a gift. And so I bless all of the women listening, all of the children, all of the pregnant moms and the people trying. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I love you.